my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today I've got another book talk video to share with you guys. And today we are talking about How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. Now, this was the first book of Matt's I've ever read, though over the years I've heard so many good things about him and his writing, so I was excited to finally get to sit down and read one for myself. So let's just jump on into it. The book's protagonist is a man named Tom Hazard. He looks about 40 years old. He's a history teacher living in London, but the thing is, though he looks 40 years old, Tom's actually well into his 400s. You see, Tom has a very, very rare, little understood medical condition where he ages very slowly. For how much a human being ages in 1 year, it takes him many, many, many years, 15, 20 years, to age the same amount. It's kind of like the opposite of that condition that's depicted in the Benjamin Button movie, where the age is accelerated. So throughout this book, we kind of travel throughout time, going from present-day London back to different time periods through flashbacks. There's the 1600s, which was where Tom was born. He and his mother lived and had a life together until eventually the townspeople noticed that Tom wasn't aging, and they accused her of being a witch and using magic to make him immortal, and they drowned her. Then after that, Tom sort of went out on his own, and it was around that time that he met two sisters, Rose and Grace, and they were on their own too, and they were sort of panhandling in the streets, selling fruits, things like that. And they take him in. They're around the same age. Rose is about 18. Her little sister is a few years younger. And then Tom tells them that he is 16. So they start to build a life together, and Tom begins to fall in love with the older sister, Rose. And of course, as you can imagine, falling in love with anybody when you're suffering from that affliction could be a real problem, because they're going to age. You're not going to. Eventually, you're going to look like their grandson. That's not even touching on the fact that how long is it going to be before townspeople start to notice you? So after his time with Rose and Grace, which I won't spoil too much for you right now because it's, it's sad, but after his time with them, he realizes that he has to sort of keep moving, and he can only spend a few years at a time in any certain place before people start to get suspicious. At one point, he went to a doctor who was very excited to talk to him. I think this was like in the 1900s that he went to the doctor. The doctor was very excited about the prospect of this, helping him researching this new disease, maybe helping him find a way to deal with it. But then shortly after that, the doctor is found dead in the river because we begin to find out that there are other people like Tom living in the world who have kind of formed a society where they've made it their personal mission to sort of rein in all the people with the affliction, and then to keep them safe, which in their mind means to keep anyone from finding out about them, because then it just sort of becomes this, circus where they're looked at nothing more than lab rats, and they don't want that to happen. So the doctor turns up dead, and then this society approaches Tom and sort of brings him into the fold and explains to him how it works. The number one rule of this society is never fall in love, because it can only end in heartbreak, which Tom already knows from personal experience. So now it's, present day London. His current incarnation is as a history teacher, which works out well for him because throughout his past, he's had many unlikely and extravagant encounters, which make for fun reading. But the logical part of me was like, how would he know all these people? But it was fun to read about. He performed on stage with Shakespeare. He explored the world with Captain Cook. He drank in bars and pubs with F. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald. So we began to learn that Tom, back in the 1600s, during his time with Rose, he had, they'd had a baby together. And after the baby was born, they began to find out once she hit like puberty, because 13 is when this really seems to kick in. It seems a child ages normally, and then once puberty hits, it stops. So once their daughter, whose name was Marion, reached that age, they realized that she also had the affliction, that it was hereditary, at least some of the time, because later we run into other people who had children and did not pass it on to them, but in Tom's case, he did. But the thing is, to help protect Rose and his daughter, he left them because he had to protect them. He thought he needed to be away from them so that they could live normal lives. So that was before, of course, they found out that Marion was like him. So by the time she's old enough, he's long gone for what he thinks is their benefit. And so now, in present day, it's really weighing on his mind that somewhere out there is a daughter who's like him, who he desperately needs to reconnect with. So the leader of the society, a man named Hendrik, he sort of uses that knowledge that Tom is searching desperately for his daughter as a weapon. Anytime he needs Tom to do something for him, he'll dangle like, oh, I can help you find your daughter, in front of his face so that Tom will do his bidding. And as time goes on, we learn that this society, while, you know, their intentions might be good, their ways are extreme and not always how they look. So Tom keeps doing, you know, what Hendrik needs him to do, but never delivers on the promise of helping him find his daughter. So Tom trying to find his daughter is pretty much the central storyline here. As things unfold, we meet another teacher at the school where Tom teaches. Her name is Camille, and they sort of notice that sparks begin to fly between the two of them a little bit. And one night, and while they're getting to know each other a little bit, she keeps insisting that she recognizes him from somewhere. And he's like, well, I don't know where. Maybe I just have a face like that. And then one night he takes her out for drinks, and she puts the pieces together in her mind, and she's like, I know where I know you from. And she tells him that she saw a portrait from a bar of a pianist. And this would have been during his time with F. Scott Fitzgerald, when he was playing pianos in bars. And so she saw this portrait hanging on the wall, and she knew it was him because it looked just like him, but he also had a scar on his arm in the same place that Tom has a scar on his arm. So eventually, he decides to tell her the truth, which puts not only himself in danger, but also her, because people who find out about the members of this Albatross Society, is the name of the society, they tend to just disappear and as a way of protecting themselves. So, you know, it was after a few glasses of wine, his tongue got a little loose, and he told her. One thing, though, after he tells her, you cannot tell anybody, like, you can't. If you do, you'll be putting yourself, me, maybe your whole family in jeopardy, so you can't tell anyone. And she's like, okay. And this is a part that kind of tripped me up. I was like, really? So at a different time, when they're spending time together, they're at a dog park, he gets a phone call from Hendrik, the leader of that society. And he goes to take it, and Hendrik is sort of grilling him, like, are you alone? This, the other thing. And he's saying, yeah, I'm alone, it's fine. And then in the background, Hendrik hears Camille yelling to the dog, and he knows Tom's dog's name. So he's like, who is that? I know she's talking to your dog. And then she's approaching, and then from her point of view, she hears Tom saying, oh, it's nobody. Like, she's just someone here at the dog park. She doesn't matter. She's just talking to my dog. And then she gets furious at this. She gets so mad. Even though I feel like wouldn't she at least wait to hear an explanation? Because, you know, the day before, a few days before, he had told her this whole thing about how he's 400 odd years old, and things have to be so hush-hush and secret, and she can't talk about it and can't tell anyone. I felt like that was a bit of an extreme reaction on her part, and I think at the very least, if it was me, I would have waited to be like, what was that about? Like, why couldn't you say that you were here with me? Is that just me? I don't know. So I thought she really overreacted, and like she held a grudge for quite a bit after that in the book. So I just felt like that was an extreme reaction, and that's not how someone would actually react. Especially considering the circumstances where she knows, I don't know. So yeah, that's the basic bulk of this book. I enjoyed reading it quite a bit. It's wonderfully written. The story kept me engaged the entire time. It's not 100%, you know, what my favorite story to read is, but I enjoyed it. I really liked reading the bits like when he flashed back to when he was working with Shakespeare, or when he had a bit of a friendship with F. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald. I kind of wish they had expanded on that and maybe brought in some of their other friends from the time, like Hemingway, although Hemingway is mentioned. We never meet him. Like Hemingway or Gertrude Stein and things like that. I just thought it'd be so fun just to spend more time there with the Fitzgeralds. But that, of course, is just my personal preference. But yeah, all in all, it was a great story. Kept me entertained the whole time. Good writing, strong characters, an interesting premise that I felt was executed pretty good. Whereas that was my problem with last week's book. It was such an interesting premise, but the execution was a flop. Whereas I think with this, interesting premise, executed well. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely recommend reading How to Stop Time. If you've already read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, since it's Friday here on my channel, I want to do a quick shout out before we go. Today's shout out goes to Vickers 1.5 cents. This woman is cool. There's no other word to use to describe her. You watch her videos, she oozes cool in the best, purest sense of the word, and I absolutely love her. She's so supportive. Her videos are so fun. She does a lot of different types of beauty videos. Recently, she did a series where she was trying the Halo Beauty vitamins for a month. Loved it. I always love all the videos she makes. She took a break from YouTube for a while, about a year ago. And she's recently back. She's back with a vengeance, and I absolutely love her and definitely suggest you go and check her out. If you do, make sure you let her know that I sent you. See you on Monday, guys.